Welcome to the podcast. We do recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center, Rise Up Subs, and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
Listeners, we are back, baby. It has been too long since I've been in this studio. I'm excited today. I have an amazing guest for you guys, a great topic. Sean Denovan's back in town. I'm just, man, a lot of gratitude today. I hope you have all had a beautiful April. I hope you're out there enjoying the beautiful weather. Wherever you're at, wherever you're listening to this, I hope that you're getting ready for summer. I love this time of year. It is so nice. Today we have the topic of today's episode 149 is going to be somatic therapy work. I have an amazing human being. She's a therapist, clinical mental health counselor. Mm-hmm. She goes by the name that she was given at birth, I assume. Jennie Poole.
Yes.
Jennie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So good. So good. Thank you for joining me on the podcast, being willing to come on.
Thank you for having me. I'm passionate about somatic therapy, so I could talk about it for lots of hours.
Love it. We're going to dive into that. We're definitely going to get into that. Before we jump into this whole thing, let's show our sponsors a little bit of love. Episode 149 is brought to us by Steps Recovery Centers. Steps Recovery Centers is an adult substance abuse and mental health treatment provider. Steps Recovery Centers provides all levels of care. They have a medical detox facility, multiple residential treatment centers, and outpatient services reaching from the top of Utah to the bottom. Recovery starts with you, and at Steps Recovery Centers, there is always hope. Give them a call at 801-800-8142 or visit their website. That's stepsrc.com to learn more. Episode 149 is also brought to us by Rise Up Supplements. Rise Up Supplements is a nootropic line aimed at optimizing brain function and supporting mental health. They have two powerful blends. Mindful Mood helps decrease anxiety and enhance mood. Mind Shift helps increase focus and optimize brain function. These are nootropic supplements for the brain. Place your order at riseupsups.com. That's RISEUPSUPS.com. At checkout, punch in promo code podcast20 in all caps to save yourself 20% off just for listening. It's a good thing we're doing some somatic therapy work today.
That was a really good somatic breath that you just
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Try that breath again.
Yes. Oh, wow. Denovan's always doing crazy stuff. Sean Denovan, I'm going to kick it off with some new and goods here. Let's let my nerves kind of settle in while I do some more deep belly breathing over here while we're on the topic of somatic therapy work. What's going on with you, man?
My dad died. So there's that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we talked about last time, but there was it was one of those things that they're like, we think he has lung cancer. We think it's mesothelioma. And we think that might be 2, 4, 6 months. And it ended up being about 3 weeks. So 3 weeks, and we went out to San Jose and we had dinner and everything was great and the siblings were there. So that's one of those things, one of those memories you burn into your life forever. It's like, okay, we all sat around the table, we laughed about everything, we had a great dinner, and then 2 weeks later he was in the hospital for just a couple of things, and then 3 days of I won't say suffering, but 3 days of uncomfortableness in the hospital delirium. When I came back out to see what was going on, he was about 10-15% there. So he was hallucinating, he was mumbling, and then every so often you'd see it in the eyes, and he knows what's going on. We could chat for a couple quick seconds, and he was gone. So a full lifetime, 85, healthy the majority of his life, good dad, good husband, built everything, and just one of those things where everything was great. And then, so instead of having to worry about hospice and palliative care and putting a hospital bed in the house, all that just disappeared very quickly. And doctor came in Sunday, and he was alive, came back 10 minutes later, and he was gone. So, as I said, it was quick, easy, simple.
Sounds like you were able to spend some time with your loved ones. And
yeah.
Last time we talked about this because we were going to be taking a break from recording. It was like, hey, I want to spend some time with him while he's still here. So it sounds like you got to do that.
Yeah, I was hoping to have 6 more months of that. But even at that time, it was like, I've already said everything I needed to say. We have a good relationship, so there's nothing that was like, oh my God, I need to repair this relationship after, because he hurt my feelings when I was 6. None of that going on. So, yeah.
No resentments that you had.
No, it's
nice.
It's for what death is, it was ahead of the curve.
Well, it sounds like you got a pretty good, pretty healthy relationship with death there, and I love you, buddy. I was thinking of you as you were out there. I think I texted you even. Like, I'm glad that it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
I will say it's been a weird year. There's been a lot of death around me in this last 1-2 years or so. So we had 3 of our motorcycle friends die recently and some other people. So it's been an interesting moment in life, and also realizing that I'm at that age where this is now going to happen more frequently.
I feel like stuff like that comes in threes for me. Is that kind of what you're going through? There's several of them there.
Hadn't thought about it that way, but it's just for me, it's okay, well, I hit 50 this summer, and that's just, parents are in their 80s. That's circle of life. That's what we're going at.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So learn to deal with it the best way you can. So there you go. I've taken up way too time.
Thanks for sharing, buddy. No, of course. We had literally had somebody write in and was asking and was curious. So I appreciate you being willing to check in with our listeners.
And I appreciate them reaching out. Thank you guys very much for letting me be a part of your community, even though I'm just a button pusher over here in the corner. Here, let me wave from up top. There we go. I'm waving. There you go. There's my hand.
And we love you for that, Donovan. We love you for that. Jennie, what's new and good in your life? What you got going on?
Life is pleasantly busy. It's that good kind of busy. Have a group practice. It's called Mend Counseling Center. And just really allowing that to thrive and grow, connecting with some amazing clinicians with a lot of experience, and doing some good work out there.
Yeah, I love Mend Counseling. I work obviously for Steps Recovery Centers, our sponsor here, and it's nice to be able to refer them to some quality therapists out in the community for them to have ongoing maintenance and maybe even deal with some stuff that cognitively they weren't ready to deal with while they were in the first 6 months or 9 months of their sobriety. So appreciate everything you guys do there at Mend. You guys are amazing.
We love connecting to the recovery community. You guys there's so many people doing it well here in town. And I think the rap that happens in this community around recovery, like the sober softball, it doesn't matter which program it seems where people are at, is that the recovery community comes really connected together to support each other.
Well said. I totally agree. I feel like we have a great recovery community down here and a lot of really good providers for sure. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for being part of that and all the stuff you do for our community. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys run the program, and then there's that pretzel wrap, right? That ongoing support. And one of the things that I really wanted to dedicate as a part of Mend, right, was to be able to do that ongoing support. Is that you're 4 to 6 or however many months in IOP, but a lot of people need ongoing therapy and trauma work, and we wanted to be able to have experienced clinicians that could handle and hold the space of that trauma work.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Okay, so let's let our listeners get to know you. So you started Mend, you've been working for Mend. Let's maybe kind of get a little bit into that. But like, where does the story of Jennie Poole becoming a therapist start? And what does your life look like today? Husband, kids? Let's get to know Jennie a little bit.
I have 4 boys. I couldn't make girls, I guess. I should have been in the times where I was a queen and wanted to have lots of heirs. No, I have 4 boys. I have a 17-year-old, one that just turned 16, big gap. And then I've got a 7-year-old and a super surprise 4-year-old. I was 41 and had him. So
some age difference in there, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, they're through this stage. Let's start another one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I was married, and then I got divorced, and then this is a story for another time, but the guy that I started dating, and now we've been together for 8 years, he said he couldn't have kids, and we have 2.
Wow.
We can.
That's kind of a really cool story, though. Yeah. That's a really cool story.
It's that moment of everything I never knew I wanted, and here they are. He's the best dad. He's
That's
so
awesome.
good with those little ones. And then the older boys are so good with their little brothers.
Oh, yeah.
So.
They get to pick on them and drive them crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's the relationship I had with my brothers, man. They love to tease me and give me a hard time.
There was that, but even my 7-year-old will come in. When my 16-year-old comes home, he's like, "There's my very best friend."
Oh, that's cool.
So cute. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, and they do a good job with them. But where I got into therapy is I remember I was playing softball at UVSC, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There's probably like 10 different professions I was sure I was going to be a veterinarian. I was going to be in the medical fields. At one point, I was going to be a dental hygienist. And then I took my first psychology class, and I was like, this is it. I love psychology. I just fell in love with it. And then it was a pathway to getting into whatever it took to meet with people and do therapy.
Isn't that such an interesting stage of life, though? Right? Like, it's crazy to think that some guidance counselors have kids they start asking, what is it you want to do for the rest of your life when they're in like junior high? When in reality, it sounds like for you, it was college where you were like, okay, I'm maybe the medical field, maybe this field. Took a psychology class, and here you are today.
Well, and the funny thing about that, I'll say this, that sometimes people feel like they've got to figure their life out in their 20s. There's such pressure when I work with these college age kiddos, but young adults, they get sometimes so much pressure on themselves. But keep in mind, I didn't finish my bachelor's degree till I was in my 30s. I finished my master's degree when I was in my 30s. I'm 45 now, and I didn't really start Mend until just almost 2 years ago. And so you got time.
Yeah.
You got time to figure stuff out. You can rewrite those chapters anytime. Like, you can pivot if you need to. If I wasn't doing psychology, there's now two other professions I love school and I love learning. And so I'd just go get another degree and keep on going. That's
a beautiful little golden nugget for our listeners out there that are in that stage, right? Or maybe listeners in early recovery, no matter what their age, where they come to this point in their life where they're like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life?
Well, and I've ran out of time. No, you haven't. You got time. And you can always like learn something and go do something.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. That's cool. Okay, so you took
real
this...
quick, so I went and I was in wilderness therapy. I was working in wilderness therapy. I thought I was going to be a wilderness therapist for the rest of my life.
So you were a wilderness therapist was your first job?
I was a staff in wilderness therapy.
Okay, while you were going to school?
Like, I was doing that in my 20s. I started doing that when I was 20, and I did it for 15 years.
How was that?
I loved it.
Did you?
I was a river guide in Moab after I finished playing softball. I loved outdoor stuff. And so I just wanted to keep working outdoors, but I wanted to do something that felt a little more meaningful. River rafting, you're just entertaining. It's entertainment. Yeah. So I found wilderness therapy, and I thought to myself, like, well, who wouldn't want to get paid for camping?
It's a great point.
And there were days where I'm like, I think I've earned every penny that I made. And other days I'm like, I can't believe I get paid for this. It was great.
Just depends on the day.
Yeah, I worked for a great company. I was able to evolve, and I think that's where a lot of my creativity and my ability to work with a lot of different kinds of people was shaped, because I worked with so many different amazing therapists.
That's awesome. I can kind of relate a little bit. When I was going to school, I was at kind of they called me the rec director for a youth home. And I can tell you this, the kids were really nice to me because they wanted to go on the rec activities. Right? So it was a little difficult sitting around staff meeting, and they're like, oh, Johnny or Susie. And I'm like, they're great for me.
Yeah, I have no problems with them.
Well, maybe we reverse roles here for a second. They'll start, But such a vulnerable population there. Like, what were I know I had some mixed feelings working in a youth home, because it's kind of tough, right? Mm-hmm. Anything like maybe that happened when you were doing the wilderness thing that made you think like, I want to get more into the clinical side of this thing?
Well, I've always wanted to get in the clinical side of things, because I wanted to be in the chair. I wanted to be able to be helping people figure things out. And there was such power in watching people's light bulb moment come on, where they're like, there's hope. I can figure this out. I can heal. Things can repair in my life, and I can start anew. Watching therapists do that well with the clients, because it was unique in wilderness in that we could sit in as staff with the therapist, and so you're just, if you want to be a therapist, that's one of the best ways to learn. I learned from some great therapists, just
being in the room, just being a fly on the wall in the room, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you doing the wilderness thing, going to school, took a psychology class, and you're like, this is it.
Yeah. And then eventually I started having babies, and you get to a point where you're like, I don't know if I want to sleep outside.
Life kind of happens.
Yeah. And so I eventually went into more like residential treatment, working with young adults. And I just got to a point, and during grad school, a long time ago, I knew I think I do a pretty good job of seeing kind of where, if you want to call them trends, or kind of where the waves of mental health and the efficacy connected to mental health.
Yeah.
And a long time ago, I saw that there's going to be room one day for somatic therapy, where you can meld more of that somatic releasing and experiencing what's happening in the body connected to what's happening in the mind. So while I was in grad school, I went to massage school, and not because I wanted to go work in a like massage place.
Okay.
Massage school was just a means to an end to get like my license, because I knew that eventually I wanted to do structural body work. And when I did that a lot for athletes, and people would come in and their shoulders would be pinned down, their, hips hurting.
Yeah.
And if you're an athlete, and people that are athletic, they don't want to stop moving. They don't want to be restricted. So if you can get people out of pain, I learned this really early on. If you get people out of pain, you have them for the rest of your life. Like they will come and keep getting out of pain.
So 2 thoughts there. Number 1, you're now my favorite guest that's ever come on this podcast, because you acknowledge that I look somewhat like an athlete. That was like a past lifetime ago.
You can tell.
Thank you.
Yep.
The second thought is, when people are in pain, their mood, it reflects that. Mm-hmm. Like I have kind of some neuropathy that I work through. I take a lot of ibuprofen, right? But typically when it's at its worst, I'm a grouch. You don't want to be around me, which it's mental health, right? It affects your relationships. It affects your outlook on life.
It saps your life force energy.
Well said. Well said. So that makes total sense. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's mental pain, emotional pain, or physical pain. Now, initially when I was doing structural body work, before I kind of melded it into somatic therapy, it was getting people out of physical pain. But inevitably, because I was down a psychology tract, people would open up and they're like, what is happening in here? I'm like, this is some therapy with some body work.
Well, and I think it's so cool how different, I've seen this before and I can recognize it in myself. And now I'm kind of seeing this with you, how your past experiences pour into the type of therapist that you are. Mm-hmm. I'm very much like a coach, an encourager. We can do this, right? Build relationship stuff. Like I want there to be a bond, like a coach athlete between me and my client. It sounds like, based on your past experience, massage therapy, that type of stuff, you're very much into this somatic work that we're going to talk about. Yes,
very much. I knew that there was going to be a wave of mental health that came in, and now you hear somatic all the time. Somatic this, like who's doing somatic
like a pop
therapy?
word.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's very trendy, but it's a good thing, because when you look at what continues to create efficacy in therapy, people don't want to take years and years to heal.
When you say efficacy, just so the listeners understand, that's like efficiency.
Effectiveness.
Yes.
So if someone comes and sees me for therapy, I don't want you to see me for 3 years if we can get something done in 3 months, right? It creates less kind of codependency in that therapeutic arena.
Yeah.
And you heal and repair, and you find your equilibrium. You find your kind of stable, even with stressors or struggles, you find your more stable place, and then life is doable. And so practices and modalities that help create that efficacy is what I got really interested in. What moves the needle on people healing instead of it taking forever. And trauma therapy back in the day was sometimes just talking about it and recirculating it and talking about it, and never really, where's the healing and repairing happening?
Got you.
You know? Yeah.
And really paying attention to where it is in the body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's I'm acting like I know all this about somatic therapy. And the honest to God truth is I know very little or nothing, right? I can recognize in myself that my nerve pain in my back is very much tied to my stress level. Mm-hmm. The more stressed I am, the more pain I'm in. The more pain I'm in, the worse mood I'm in, right? That kind of trickle down effect. So give us just kind of a
snapshot.
Yeah, give us that 30,000 foot perspective of what somatic therapy work really looks like, because it's some talk therapies involved, right?
Well, absolutely. So what you just described was a psychosomatic experience. So there's a somatic experience happening in your body that's also connected to your mental body. So it's your mental body, your emotional body, and your physical body. So somatic therapy gets people connected to that emotional and mental body, also with what's going on in the physical body and the physical sensations. I can, at this point, even just with some of the kind of therapy that I do, I can watch somebody and I can see where they're holding tension, not just in their body physically, but where they're holding tension in their body psychically. Like,
really?
Yeah. There's an attunement that grows over time with your ability to be able to see where people are bound.
Where they're holding their stress or trauma or,
Yeah. And you look at being emotionally bound. It's like when I would walk around in Costco, sometimes I'd be like, hey, look at that person, because I could just see their body was out of alignment. Just from a structural body standpoint. You can actually see when people are emotionally out of alignment, right? So somatic therapy helps people untangle, unwind, unencumber. Those are some of the words I use a lot. And slough off that psychic debris that accumulates that then creates tension and pressure in the body. So
Got it.
nervous system tension.
So if I was a client and I came in, let's say hypothetically for our listeners to understand this, I'm a client, I come in, I sit down, you're very much not just listening to what I say, but watching your client's body reactions during conversations.
Yeah. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in the way that they hold their jaw. You can see it in the way they move their fingers, tap their feet.
Very cool.
There's so much nonverbal happening with the way people hold tension. Again, emotional tension, mental tension, physical tension.
Got you.
And it's all very connected. Like, this is one thing I love about somatic therapy is the body is meant to be an interconnected system. Your respiratory system doesn't work without your endocrine system. It doesn't work without your cardiovascular system.
They're all very much...
It is
Yeah.
is it an in-synced system? So if we ever thought that just separating the mind and the emotions from the body, it makes no sense. The body harmoniously wants to create equilibrium together and find its happy place together with all those systems being able to do it.
Makes sense so that it can all work in as one big system and work in sync, right? It's kind of like IFS parts therapy, right? All the parts want to get along and work well together for this benefit of the system of parts.
IFS therapy works really well with somatic therapy because and it's not just trauma work, but when you're doing trauma work, you're getting connected to parts that are wounded and you're unencapsulating, unicing, kind of helping them get out of these emotional prisons that they've got stuck in. And the memory system, we have a lot of files in there. It's finding the ones where the trauma energy that's just kind of that frenetic energy that's built up in the system that's kind of making the nervous system. It's like living and looping around that moment in time. And what I tell people is, they're like, well,
Is that why people have a hard time like sitting still or
sometimes, yeah,
maybe
the
they're
nervous
bouncing
system,
their knee or they're...
Sometimes that can just be like nervousness and anxiety,
Okay.
but sometimes it's nervous system tension that has no way, it's trying to get out.
Got you.
Right? And that's the body trying to discharge the energy.
So would step one be recognizing where it is in your body?
Yep. With somatic therapy, it's mind, body based therapies that help people get connected with what's happening. Again, when they pull those files that are connected with that energetic kind of psychic debris and then where the sensations are. So let me give you an example of that. And I wasn't necessarily doing somatic therapy on this particular client. I was actually just doing body work. We got to her feet and she recoiled really quick when I touched her foot, which is a trauma response. That's most people, unless because it didn't tickle her foot, it didn't hurt her foot. I said, that hurt? She said, no. I said, that looked like a trauma response. Like, I don't even know why I did that.
That's fascinating.
So we came back into the foot, and the body's a big recording device. If you give your body enough time, it's an intuitive vessel, the information will come up. The stories.
That's crazy.
It is.
That's crazy.
We more gently came on that point. And again, this isn't something that plagued her life. She wasn't, but it was interesting, the memory. This is something she hadn't remembered since she was a kid. She stepped on a hornet.
Oh.
And it stung her. And you know how hornets are. They're not like bees. Their stings hurt more.
Right. Oh, yeah.
She felt like she was stepping on a nail. And that's what she remembered. Even before she remembered the memory, she remembered feeling like, she's like, that felt like I just stepped on a nail. She's like, how hard did you touch that? I'm like, I literally touched it so lightly. But the somatic imprint was still there. So
how deep in the recesses of her mind must that have been, though? Because I'm sure she wasn't thinking anything about that.
It actually took her a while to find the memory, but that's what we do. I bring into my conscious awareness that which I need to know and understand about what just happened here. I say that a lot with my clients.
Say that one more time. But
I bring
slower.
into my conscious awareness that which I need to know and understand about what just happened here in my body, or what I'm feeling right now in my stomach, or why my ear hurts right now.
So really raising the awareness around why the response is there.
Because it's there, right? If you're having some kind of a psychosomatic, if you're having a somatic response like that, oftentimes there's the story. I'll give you another example. This was a more when I was doing therapy with somatic therapy, they had been abused, and as I got to working on them and working with them, I could tell they had taken a blow to their face. I said, were you hit? And like, that was the side I was always hit on.
Oh, wow.
But you could see all of almost like it's not just energy, but you could just see the way that the nonverbals were, that there was a protection happening right there. So,
that the body, right?
It keeps the score.
Well, and it's gonna like have natural reactions, just like if you burn your hand on the stove, obviously it's gonna pull away, right? That's so fascinating. Okay, well, I feel like we're knee deep in some somatic therapy work here. We're just gonna keep continuing to get even deeper in it. Right after this short little sponsorship mention from Steps Recovery Centers.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center, Rise Up Subs in the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
If you or your loved one is trapped in the cycle of addiction, there is a way out.
At Steps Recovery Center in Utah, we believe in second chances and new beginnings. Our evidence-based treatments, compassionate staff, and supportive community guide you on the path to recovery.
It is time to reclaim your life. Take the first step towards freedom, resilience, and a brighter tomorrow. Reach out to Steps Recovery Centers today.
Recovery starts with you, and at Steps, there is always hope. Call us or visit our website to learn more.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center, Rise Up Subs in the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
Dr. Terry Sellers is in Florida right now, enjoying a little golf with his brother, that lucky ducky.
He seems like a Florida guy.
That's where he was
He's
born
Florida
and raised. Man. Yeah. Unfortunately, he's not here in the studio with us today, but we have Jennie Poole, and I love Sellers, but I'm glad that like we're gonna have some time for Jennie to talk
smells
today.
nicer than. I'm just saying.
It's good news.
So no, but in all seriousness, shout out to Sellers. We miss you. We love you. Hope you're having fun in Florida with your brother. Hopefully you hit a hole in one for me. Right on. So we have been talking about somatic therapy. I know very little, so this has been 2 things I love about doing this podcast. Number 1, I get to connect with people. I get to know them a little bit better, right? Yeah. Because in this busy world we live in, how often do you sit down and talk to somebody about either their life or a topic that you both are interested in for 50 minutes?
Right.
Very little, right?
Very little, yeah.
And like, I don't have to pay you to learn stuff from you, which is cool too, right?
Right.
That's rad. The other thing is being able to let listeners hear this stuff, maybe find some hope. Maybe somebody's really struggling with a barrier between the brain and the body, and they listen to this episode and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to start looking into this. Yeah. So education, information, a message of hope. It's what I love about these podcasts. So far we've kind of talked about it's important to find out where either the pent up energy, anxiety, trauma, fill in the blank is in the body. So the first step is really kind of assessing and raising your awareness around where is it for you?
Yeah.
Where does it live in your body?
Yes.
This is important. I feel like this is also important for people in recovery because they might not even realize that they're still holding on to some stuff. So what's next after we kind of raise awareness? I'll use me as an example to educate our listeners. So like when I get stressed, I turn into a turtle, right? I go turtle shell. It's very much in my traps and in my upper back. So after I kind of realize that's where it's at, what would be the next step that you would work on?
So the thing that's beautiful about somatic therapy is there's not one way to do it. I was actually in San Diego recently at a place called, the Embody Lab runs it. Dr. Scott Lyons, he has a book out there. And it was a conference centered on somatic therapy. And you had all these presenters and they were doing somatic therapy. All of them were doing it differently, but doing it. I mean, Dr. Scott Lyons used a small yoga ball to help people get connected to their bodies by bringing what was connected, the body that was connected to the surface of the ball. So putting your head on the back of the ball and noticing the sensations and the feelings. This other gal used what's called tremoring, which is connected to TRE therapy, which is, I can't remember right now off the top of my head the guy's name that developed that, but it's where you induce tremoring in the body. And why that's important is a long time ago, Peter Levine, who is, I would call him one of the founders of somatic therapy, wrote a book called Waking the Tiger. And in his kind of discovery of somatic therapy, and he has a whole modality now called somatic experiencing, they studied animals in the wild. And if they were going to get caught by a mountain lion, for example, and then they got away, they would go to a really safe place and they would shiver.
Oh, yeah.
So if you've ever been in a car wreck or you've had something really scary happen to you,
Just going to say, yeah. You think about people in a car wreck, what's the worry? The worry is they're going to go into shock, which means they're going to shiver, they're going to shake.
And shock, like, I know that there are some things you have to be careful with shocks. People don't just like totally go offline, but the shivering and the tremoring and the shaking off helps the nervous system regain equilibrium. It's actually important to let people kind of shake some of that off.
Releases the energy, maybe.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to discharge all of that survival energy
I'm thinking
that started
of
to build up.
my dog Rocky every time I give him a bath.
Yes.
After the bath, he's running out, right? We call it the zoomies. He gets the zoomies. He's running all over the house. He's kind of going crazy. It's probably because he was stressed while getting that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting
If
this.
he's having a stress response, well, he has to do something that you're making him do, that he needs to do. But my little dog's the same way. He just gets so nervous and upset. And then afterward, it's like, I got to discharge that energy.
Okay.
So that's the heart of somatic therapy is you're looking at how can we get you connected to what's the somatic memory? What's the somatic imprint, right? We're going to pull the file out of the brain, connect you to what's going on in the body, and we start unwinding, untangling, unencumbering. You can do that various ways. Something as simple as a vibration plate, for example. You see these in gyms. They kind of make your body shake at really high levels sometimes. You can actually do somatically, you don't ever have to have it be super intense. So you can put a vibration plate at level 1 and just induce kind of shaking on the body. And you can discharge a lot of psychic tension. So we'll put our kids, like at Mend that come some of the kids, they won't even start therapy. Some of the therapists there won't start until they put them on the vibe plate. Just helps them kind of get some of that excess energy out, shake it out. If they've had a particularly hard session, you can end on the vibe plate. We have vibroacoustic sound table. The vibroacoustics help decompress.
I got to check that out like a week or two ago.
It feels so soothing, so good. In 10 to 20 minutes, you can decompress the nervous system, which is the name of the game when you're trying to create equilibrium in the body, is calibrating the nervous system.
The thing that I thought was the coolest about the table that you showed me was it's vibrating to the rhythm or the flow of the music that's playing, right? So not only do you hear the music, but you can feel it in your body as you're having that experience.
And you're picking music that's conducive to tapping into the lower brain waves, the theta waves, the delta waves. Like all the binaural beats that I run through the sound table are all in the theta delta range.
Nice.
To help, again, calm the brain down, to calm the body down.
Yeah. Man, it's fascinating.
So you can use any tool. Like there was a gal at this conference that she worked with actors and singers.
Okay.
And she was helping people decompress their somatic body. I thought this was so interesting. Everyone's different approach to it. By just helping them work to release the fascia tension in their body through the abdomen. So
oh, really?
As they release tension in their fascia, which is, if people aren't familiar with what fascia is basically what binds and wraps around our muscles. It wraps around our organs. It's kind of what contains us.
So it holds it together.
Yeah, it's like the fabric.
The lining.
Yes. Yeah. And just by helping people release tension in their fascia and then getting connected with because in that particular, in your abdomen, there's a lot of self-esteem, how we value ourselves, how we process and digest, not just food, but how we process and digest emotions.
Okay.
Right? So there's so much that can happen in the abdomen. And so one of her approaches was just to help people release the tension there. And all of a sudden they were singing bolder and brighter and longer. They were able to remember their lines better and speak more clearly because they're releasing tension all through the abdomen, even into the throat.
That's fascinating. One of the things that my brain goes to is whenever I feel like either angry or overstressed or overwhelmed, I notice that it's tight, right? Like I don't do deep breathing. Like my whole abdomen diaphragm is very tight and very condensed. And so but you don't normally think of this stuff, right? Until somebody like you points it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, breathing, this is making sense. I get that.
Yeah. A free tool is breathing. Like there's so many people that shallow breathe.
That's actually what I thought somatic was just like breathing techniques before, like I got to go check out your office and before you came on today, I thought it was just like Wim Hof breathing. I thought that was somatic. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So most people don't. I'll say, hey, take a somatic, do some somatic breathing, and they'll go, well, that was a breath, but
right.
really deep in that. So when another somatic tool that a lot of people use, just so people can understand, even EMDR, it's a well-known modality out there. It's a trauma modality. So a lot of people use EMDR. Brain spotting is coming on the map. I use a lot of brain spotting. When you're doing somatic tools, I almost always will include deep somatic breathing, because you're looking for what sloughs off the psychic tension, right? In a big, deep breath, it's like you're gathering it all up, and then you're pushing it all out of your body. And then you really want to create a visual representation of seeing it leave your body.
Got ya.
And that's a very simple, kind of simplistic snapshot of what is one avenue of releasing, letting the body release somatically.
So I got to ask this because my mind's going here. And again, I know very little about somatic, and so I'm kind of learning this. Exercise. Like for me, one of my biggest coping tools is exercise. I had surgery last December, and I couldn't work out for 3 months, and I literally thought I was going to lose my mind, right? Is like exercise a form of somatic? Because just talking about it, and like the whole example with the dog running around after a bath to kind of, shake off the stress.
It 100% is. And depending on how stressed the nervous system is, because I think this is important when people are coming back online from like any kind of heavy drug use, is that pedal to the metal and pushing the body. Like sometimes you just got to let the body heal and repair. So sometimes more gentle. Like I'll give you an example. After my fourth son, my body was in such fight or flight. It was an intense pregnancy. It was an intense birth. I had flatlined on the table. It was just like, I was so like disoriented after that last baby and I love working out and love doing things. But if I would go work out, it would like almost stress my body out more. Okay. Because I was trying to work out too hard. So for a while I had to really slow it. I had to like walk before I could run.
So working out
annoying.
Can be therapeutic, but it can also overload your system.
Yes. I'm going to say this about even like cold plunges. They're so therapeutic and they're so helpful. But if your nervous system is stressed out, like if you have a really taxed nervous system and you're in fight or flight, cold plunges will just stress out your body more. They won't help grow your bandwidth. One of the reasons that cold training is so effective is that it pushes your thresholds. It pushes your bandwidth so you can grow it a little bit more, and you learn to talk. You knowingly put yourself in a stressful place, the cold water,
distress,
and you stay there for however long, and it grows your thresholds. So the mental game that's happening with cold plunges and cold therapy like that is I'm gonna grow that mind, that my ability to like have my
grow your
bandwidth.
distress tolerance.
Yeah, your distress tolerance. But if you have no distress tolerance, if your body is in fight or flight, all you're gonna do is keep blowing your thresholds. So cold plunges aren't for everyone if your nervous system isn't ready to handle.
What would you recommend? Let's say somebody's in that state where exercising is really just overwhelming their body, or they do the cold plunges and it's not very beneficial. What would be the first step in kind of rewiring the system or getting them to a baseline or a neutral?
Like gentle walking. It was so like I was so annoyed when I first had to. I was like, this is so slow, but just gentle walking and having some sunshine. It was helping the neurotransmitters and like things in like the nervous system just do gentle, like no more stress, no more things that were stressful. I just need relief. We needed pressure off the nervous system. So sometimes it can be as simple as like really slow, gentle walking. Really like it would be really low level, like on a vibe plate. Like I have what's called a Theragun. It's a percussion tool. I use it on athletes a lot. If you switch not every percussion tool does this as well as I think Theragun does, but they have a soft attachment. And so I'll put the soft attachment on and you can use it all over your body, even in the joint cavities. And it creates this soft vibration that's happening in the body to help release that tension. So it's things that would soothe the nervous system before you challenge the nervous system.
Got you.
So until you're out of fight or flight, and I had to do a lot of things like craniosacral therapy. I did acupuncture. I did things that just made my body slow down. So when you're coming back online from addiction, it's really important to tune into sometimes moving the body and getting it. Exercising is really good, but you always want to pay attention to your thresholds. Because if you're blowing them constantly, you're just constantly putting yourself in a state of stress.
It can become worse instead of better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think about like with the clients that I work with, typically when they come into like a residential, that's one of the highest levels of care, they have a real hard time sitting still. Right? They're constantly fidgety. They got to kind of stand up and move around a little bit. And that makes sense because I'm sure their nervous system has been completely shot.
Yeah.
Or they're coming out of withdrawal, right? And so the biochemistry, the brain is changing.
The nervous system is trying to discharge and get back into equilibrium. That's why like gentle yoga, not intense Ashtanga yoga, but gentle yogas. And also what I would call there's a lot of, you'll see them on YouTube now. They're coming up a lot with just somatic exercise and somatic movements where you're just gently rocking the body. I see people do it. Like I'll have people do it in sessions where they just shake their hands. They'll start to kind of unwind. It's just what you're trying to do is unwind the body enough that it can start to go, okay, we're safe. We're okay. You're reclaiming safety in the body. You're reclaiming that tension off the nervous system so that it can be soothed. And then once your nervous system has equilibrium, because the body is a self-healing vessel, then you can challenge it again, right? You can get out there and challenge it.
Is that why like some DBT skills work, like the putting cold water on your face and things like that? Is because it's kind of really helping to shock that central nervous system, or at least kind of calm it down a little bit? Yeah,
you're using kind of a sensory experience to pull yourself into a different state. So, like if someone's having a really hard time with racing thoughts or intrusive thoughts, like putting their hands in cold water and focusing on what's happening there helps pull them back into the present moment.
Yeah.
So those are all somatic therapies. And so it's not all about relieving trauma. Sometimes like people are walking out in a stressed out state. And that's one of the things I want people to understand too, is that somatic therapy isn't just for people who've had trauma. If your nervous system, if we all are very stressed out, this is a tough world to live in now. So it's calming down the nervous system and helping people get tension off the nervous system is where the heart of somatic work can help too.
So my brain takes me to this place, just I think for my own knowledge and understanding. In a residential level, so if somebody has a loved one goes to treatment, or they themselves go to treatment, or listen to this, what's your thought on doing trauma therapy in really early recovery like that? Is it counterproductive then, because maybe their nervous system is already on the fringes? I
think that somatic therapy can help at any time, because what you're getting in tune with is what's happening in the body, and connected to the mind, of course. But if you can get the body, if you can create safety in the body, you can create safety in the mind.
So okay. Yeah. And I agree. The somatic sounds fantastic, right? In fact, I think that a lot of people are doing some type of somatic without even realizing it, right? Because their body's just trying to get rid of that energy or what's going on. Trauma specifically, though, like I went to a conference last week, and one of the treatment centers, I won't say names, but they were like, in residential, we have 4 trauma-informed therapists. There's a lot of trauma work going on. And in my mind, and again, I don't know everything, but I was thinking like heavy trauma when somebody's less than 30 days clean. Like, is that, in your opinion, what are your thoughts on that?
I have lots of opinions. Well, I will say that thresholds always have to be managed. I've had clients come to me and they've honestly had too much trauma work too fast. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. It could be counterproductive, right? You have what's called a window of tolerance. And if you don't respect window of tolerance and you're pushing somebody into doing trauma work when their window of tolerance isn't there, and that's why the attunement and watching people's body language, I'll be in the middle of brain spotting and I can tell we've hit somebody's threshold sometimes even before they have. And that's the check-in moment, like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you want to keep going? Or, hey, I need you to take a break. Like with brain spotting, you can just pull point of wherever their viewpoint is, and you can just move them to a different space, and it breaks the energy of where they were kind of processing and activated. Okay. So as soon as you shift your gaze to a different spot, you can break them out of the energy of what was going on there and reground. And I'll do that a lot. I say, hey, we just need to reground here for a second or for a minute. And then when they get regrounded, hey, do you feel like you want to go back into that? Or do you feel like we're done for today? And oftentimes, if we are doing that, allowing the client to say, I'm done. Like not done forever. I'll keep doing my trauma work. But if you don't respect window of tolerance, you actually can re-injure people in trauma. So you can create a re-injury instead of healing.
Yeah.
And so thresholds definitely need to be managed. Like I had a client that I worked with who had done way too much brain spotting. It's like too much, too fast. And the idea of even doing anything.
It became counterproductive. It was overstimulating the system.
Yeah. Thresholds weren't honored. And some of that was, I think, his inability to say, I don't want to do this anymore. Like his inability to like be able to talk about it well. But that's where the attunement as a therapist, watching people and going, we're kind of hitting their thresholds here and we got to shift. Like window of tolerance is now closed, and so we're done for today.
The RPMs are in the red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
or like Brene Brown says,
Yeah.
I'm in the weeds. Like
Yeah.
overblown.
Trauma work is meant to be healing and reparative. And so if there's a re-injury that in the trauma that's occurring, then you're part of the damage.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for explaining that to me. I'm always kind of curious, right? Because I'm I've been doing this for a couple years, but I'm still very new to the industry, and oftentimes I have these questions that pop up. Okay, so
well, real quick, think about being grounded and then being able to go work hard,
yeah,
right? Versus you're still kind of floating around trying to figure out where your bearings are, but go work hard, because trauma work is hard work.
oh yeah.
So you want people to be grounded and a little bit more centered and back online before you're challenging them to dig into some of those deep bottom top places, right? From going into the roots of
if I'm a listener and I'm listening to this and I want to get into some somatic work, is there a way that I would know when I'd hit kind of that threshold? Maybe I'm not working with, like you necessarily, who has the observation to go, hey, we need to pump the brakes for a minute. Is it like rapid heart rate? Is it maybe like sweating? It's
physical sensations in the body will start to grow. And it's one thing to help somebody has a growing anxiety, like, oh my God, I can feel that growing. There was a client I was working with, we were on the vibration plate, and it was like the dam was about to break. You could just see this tension build up. And this is why the therapeutic connection is so important too, is I looked at this client and I said, I got you. Like, I got you. Like, you're safe here.
That feels good. Yeah.
Let the dam break. Like, it's time to heal and repair. And they did. And so that was a reparative moment, because I can hold the space for you, and it can get messy and it can get hard, and I got you. I'm here to help you. That's different than this is starting to hurt me, and I'm starting to feel so lost in this somatic memory, and you got to get him out of that, because that's trouble. Like that, you're just looking at re-injury there. Like, hey, we need to reground, we need to reclaim safety in your body, and then sometimes maybe pin this for another day.
From a client standpoint, is there a way that they would know when they were getting to that point where it was too much?
You'd get flooded, and you'd want to have a really savvy therapist be like, I can tell you're starting to get really overwhelmed, and then you tease that out with the client. Okay. If you left that, I think, just to the client who is traversing this tough place anyways, it's easy for them to just feel lost in it, and they want some of that guidance.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. We got about 4 minutes left here. You've been an amazing guest. If people want to get in touch with you, I want to make sure that I leave time for this. So let's just address it right now. Words are hard some days, How do people get in touch with you if they're interested in doing some somatic work with you?
Okay, we have our website. It's MEND, MEND, MENDCounselingCenter.com.
Let's have Sean pull that up, actually, if you wouldn't mind, Sean. Sorry.
No, you're good. Our office number's on there. You connect with Hannah. She's our office manager and also one of the owners of MEND. A fantastic team there. Amazing therapists. A lot of them are have somatic tools and are also learning. Part of why I built MEND is so that I could dedicate to my team, like teaching them somatic tools, and then working with other therapists in the community to learn somatic tools. I do believe that every therapist, given where mental health is going, ought to have a somatic tool in their pocket, whether it's EMDR, brain spotting, you've got the vibe plate or Theragun, or you're using somatic breathing, you're doing somatic experiencing, compassionate inquiry, which is Gabor Mate. Peter Levine is somatic experience. There's so many different tools that you can learn and use for having a somatic tool. It doesn't have to be sophisticated and complex to grab one in your toolbox.
What about just like a stress ball?
Yes.
Or a fidget toy?
Yeah. You can
or
do
I
that.
have like the little shockers that you put on the earlobes, and it it's like a tapper.
Those are all great.
Right?
You could just as simply as run binaural beats very softly in your office. Binaural beats create a sound that comes into one side of the ear and then out the other side, and creates like equilibrium in the brain. It kind of helps calm the brain down.
Nice. Sean, were you able to throw that up? There it is. So if you're looking to get some work, visit the website one more time. MENDCounselingCenter.com. And our number to the office, it's so small right there, but it's right there. Beautiful.
We need to
435
grow that font. Yeah.
301-8969.
And I have a vibroacoustic sound table in my office, and I'm behind the courthouse. And then at a group practice office, we have a vibroacoustic sound table there. And then we just built another office next to me that's going to be dedicated to a lot of somatic therapy as well.
So you guys have multiple locations.
Yeah, well, I've always had my office that was kind of there first, and then we have the Riverside where we built the group practice, and then we just grabbed the office next door because I have a therapist that really is diving into somatics and somatic therapy, and so we built that space specifically for that. And what's eventually going to be another wave coming in of like psychedelic assisted therapy, hopefully down the road, and you need somatics combined with that 100%.
Nice.
So.
It seems like we're kind of moving towards that, right? Like I know that some of the stuff we've talked about on this podcast before, like the psilocybin and MDMA, are now approved in Utah to start being done psychedelically, right?
Well,
ketamine's been legal for a while.
Ketamine's been there. You know, with psychedelic assisted therapy, there has to be such caution tape around. It's not for everyone. And you can do somatic therapy without having to have that vehicle at all. So somatic therapy can be accessed for anyone needing trauma work. And there are some people that just aren't candidates for psychedelic assisted therapy. So it needs to be, the wave that's coming in needs to have a lot of caution tape wrapped around it.
And I think too, just to kind of like going to a place that understands that and knows that and can help navigate people through that so that they don't make their traumas even worse with a bad experience is super important too.
100%.
So thank you for coming on. We got about 20 seconds left here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We probably don't have enough time to explain the ball.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
Nervous system. That's what the nervous system.
Thank you guys for listening to this. It's been a great episode 149. Join us in 2 weeks for episode 150.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center, Rise Up Subs, and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect those of its sponsors. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.